Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Yuna and today I'm going to be talking about my March TBR. Even though February is the shortest month, for some reason it has felt like it is dragging on and February isn't even over yet. Because I have to film and edit these videos around my full-time 9 to 5 job and my other hobbies and things I have going on in my life, I'm squeezing filming this in while there is actually still about a week, almost a week and a half left of February. So depending on how the rest of the month and my reading goes, this TBR might change. But to be honest, my TBRs are always more of suggestions than promises anyway. Honestly, depending on my mood and depending on the status of my library holds, my TBR changes all the time. For example, I'm currently first or second in line at the library for like 3 or 4 books. So depending on when those become available, I might be shuffling some of these out and moving those in. Who knows? Still, I'm going to be talking about the 13 books that I am more or less hoping to get through in March. 13 might sound like a lofty number of books, but at least a third of those I think are either short stories or novellas that I can get through in like a day. I'm going to kick this off by talking about 2 books at once because they are actually part of the same series, and that is Those Who Stay and Those Who Leave and The Story of the Lost Child by Elena Ferrante. These are books 3 and 4 of the Neapolitan quartet, and in my last TBR video, I talked about wanting to read books 1 and 2 in February. Funnily enough, those are the last books that I plan to read in February, so I haven't finished those books yet. But if you don't know about the Neapolitan Quartet, the series follows the evolving friendships and lives of 2 girls, Elena and Lila, who live in Italy, as they move from childhood all the way through adulthood. Their lives and their relationships are affected by things like class and poverty and gender roles, and I've heard almost only good things about this series, so I've been very excited to get to it. By the 3rd book, I know that they're no longer children, they're moving into adulthood, and I suspect by the 4th book they're both mothers, or at least one of them is a mother. I mean, even looking at this cover, I'm suspecting that one of them is a mother. I mentioned this previously, but one of the really interesting things about this series is actually the author, Elena Ferrante. Elena Ferrante is a really mysterious figure. People don't know if that's her real name, they have no idea what she looks like, she's never made a public appearance. People aren't even sure if she's actually a woman. Some people suspect that this series is either semi or fully autobiographical, especially because, like I said, one of the main characters' names is Elena. I don't know, but if you watch my upcoming February wrap-up video, I'll talk about what I thought about the first 2 books in the series. So I have a couple novellas I want to read, the first being The Knight and the Butcherbird. I've been talking about how I really want to read The Everlasting by Alexi Harrow as part of my desperate quest to find a romantasy or romance-heavy fantasy that I fall in love with. I figured before I get to The Everlasting, I would read some of her shorter works. My February TBR included her Fractured Fable series, which included 2 novellas, The Spindle Shattered and Mirror Mended, which are retellings of Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. I actually have absolutely no idea what The Knight and the Butcherbird is about, but I will be reading it and I hope I like it. The second novella, which might actually be a short story, I'm not positive, is The 6 Deaths of the Saint. This is the short story that was expanded and later became The Everlasting. I've actually heard several people say that they prefer the shorter version and that they like The 6 Deaths of the Saint more than they enjoyed The Everlasting. I'm planning to read both of them, so we'll see how I feel. Speaking of The Everlasting by Alexi Harrow, that is the next book that I plan to read. Like I said, this is the expansion of The 6 Deaths of the Saint. That is so hard to say. 6 Deaths of the Saint. 6 Deaths of the Saint. 6 Deaths of the Saint. I'm not 100% sure what the premise is. I know that there are time shenanigans, but I'm not sure if it's a reincarnation scenario or a multiple lifetime scenario or a time travel scenario. But I know there's time stuff. I know that there's a lady knight, and I've heard people say that there is an incredible love story. I'm really praying that it delivers because I love time shenanigans, so the general premise of it sounds really interesting. My plan currently is to read this as part of a reading vlog with the next book that's going to be documenting me trying to find basically a 5-star romance fantasy. And that leads me into the next book, which is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross, which is a standalone romance fantasy that is set in the same world as the Letters of Enchantment duology. I know that there are gods, I know that there are mortals, and I know that it's sort of a prequel to The Divine Rivals, but other than that, I don't know a whole lot. I'm a little nervous for this one because while I enjoyed Divine Rivals, the second book in that duology, Ruthless Vows, that one was a bit of a disappointment to me, and I generally have ups and downs with Rebecca Ross's writing in general. I think that the worlds she creates and her prose are both really lovely, but there's some elements to her storytelling or her writing that I don't always love. Still, even people who didn't love Rebecca Ross's other works seem to have really enjoyed this, so I'm hoping that the same happens for me. My current prediction is that I'll probably enjoy The Everlasting more, but who knows? Ideally, they're both bangers and I give them both 5 stars. If you're interested in seeing how that reading experience goes, like I said, I'm planning to read this and The Everlasting as part of a reading vlog that should be out by the end of next month if things go well. Next, I have a couple more short stories. I have Summer Frost and Emergency Skin. These are the final 2 stories that I have to read in a collection of sci-fi stories by different authors. Initially, I was only interested in reading Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin because she's one of my favorite authors, but I took a look and I saw that the other stories are all so short. I think on audiobook they're an hour or an hour and a half, so I figured why not. I have read the other 3 or 4 stories, and to be honest, they've all been pretty mid or pretty forgettable, so I'm really hoping that N.K. Jemisin pulls through for me so that reading the series was worth it. Okay, so the next book I'm really excited to get to, and that is If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga. This is a novella, and in it, 2 characters meet and fall in love and have this sort of tumultuous, toxic relationship in Cairo after the Arab Spring. I remember reading a couple sentences in the synopsis and just being like, yes, I have to read that. A lush experimental novel about love as a weapon of empire. A dark romance exposing the gaps in American identity politics, especially when exported overseas. Noor Naga's experimental debut examines the ethics of fetishizing the homeland and punishing the beloved. In a globalized 21st century world, what are the new faces and races of empire? When the revolution fails, how long can someone survive the disappointment? I feel like this is going to be a complex read that's going to have me thinking and ruminating long after I finish it, so very excited. Another book I'm hoping to get to is Shuggie, Bain by Douglas Stewart. This is going to be my introduction to Douglas Stewart. The book follows a young boy named Shuggie Bain and his mother Agnes, who struggles with alcoholism. If I'm not wrong, the book follows Shuggie and his family from when he's about 6 until he's 17 or 18, and it's supposed to hit on some really hard topics like the struggles of the working class, poverty, substance abuse, sexuality, because I do think that Shuggie is queer. I believe that this is one of those sort of heavy and emotional and sort of draining reads, but I'm really excited and I hope I love it because I was also really interested in reading his other book, Young Mungo. Another book on my list is a debut novel that I haven't heard a whole lot about, and that is Nightcrawling by Layla Motley. This is set in Oakland, California, and follows a teenage girl named Kiara who is trying to survive poverty and racism and an incredibly unjust justice system, all while trying to support a little boy. And I'm not sure if the boy is her brother or if she's related to him or he might just be her neighbor. I'm not positive. Again, I haven't heard a whole lot about this book, but what I have heard has been great. I think it's supposed to be very gritty and raw and vulnerable. And one of my favorite authors ever, Tommy Orange, is on the back here. And he says, Layla Motley's writing erupts and flows like lava, makes hot, bright an Oakland that runs the city's uncontrollable brilliance. Nightcrawling bursts at the seams of every page and swallows you whole. Next, I have another debut novel that I haven't heard a whole lot about, and that is Sea Change by Gina Chung. Random fact about me, I love octopuses. My friends know this. One of them bought me the book Soul of the Octopus, and I wept watching My Octopus Teacher, which is a documentary about an octopus. So beautiful. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. Anyway, this book is about a Korean American woman named Ro who is having a third life. I believe she's 30, so I guess the third life crisis. Ro is going through it. She is estranged from her mom. Her boyfriend has literally moved to Mars. Things are just not working out for Ro, and she works at a aquarium at the mall and has a special relationship with a giant octopus there named Dolores. Her relationship with Dolores is particularly important to her because Dolores is the last connection that she has to her father, who was a marine biologist who disappeared on some sort of expedition when Ro was younger. Unfortunately, Ro just can't catch a break, and Dolores ends up getting sold, and so the book is about Ro navigating that and coming to terms with that. I might be making this up, but I think the book has elements of magical realism as well. I love magical realism, I love octopuses, and I love reading Korean authors, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this. Speaking of Korean authors, the last book that I have on my March TBR is Kim Jiyoung, born 1982. This is a translated novella written by Cho Nam-ju, and this caused, I believe, quite a stir in Korea and a lot of conversations around feminism and gender roles. The book follows a very average woman named Kim Jiyoung through different phases of her life from childhood all the way through adulthood as she experiences and endures social expectations, gender inequalities, sexism, the patriarchy, until it all sort of wears down on her mental health. I'm very curious to read this and see what got people so riled up. I'm not that plugged into conversations on sort of feminism in Korea, so I just am curious to see and compare what the dialogue is in Korea versus in the West. So yeah, I will read this and come back with my thoughts. And those are all the books I am currently intending to try to read in March. Hopefully that was short and sweet. Like I said, my TBRs change all the time, so we'll see how many of these I actually end up reading. I would love to know what you're planning to read next month, so if you have any titles on your mind, please leave them in the comments below. If you're interested in keeping up with my reading on a more book-to-book basis instead of only getting the big monthly wrap-ups, you can follow me on Instagram. It's the same handle, A Wild Unicorn. I'm a lot more active there on the day-to-day. I post to my stories, post to my feed, and I love having conversations with people in the DMs, so feel free to chat me up there. Alright, well that's all from me. As always, thank you for being here. Happy reading, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.